All right, welcome to this special episode where I'm going to share a tool that many of you may have stumbled upon already, but many may have not. And this is the new tool by Google Labs, which is called NotebookLM. And, I'm obviously recording this in video because I want you to see a little bit of this too, as just this example. So what NotebookLM does is it's used generally supposed to be as like a study guide where you can feed different sources into it. Like if you were a student, you could feed all sorts of lecture documents or sources on the web or whatever you'd like. And then it generates a bunch of content out of it. I'll show that here in a second. But a really cool piece of this is you can feed it these sources of information and you can have it create a podcast for you with two hosts. These are two fictional AI hosts, but I'm going to play the sample from the source that I've done for this episode. So recently, I was featured in one of the Elion Briefing newsletters. And so this is the example of the newsletter. It was in September, and it was, all about like large language models and unlocking the clinical use case, which is obviously super valuable. But they went through and they explained what it is and are LLMs ready for clinical use, and talked about the challenges of bias and accuracy, etc. But then they broke it all down into like what it is, and it's a great newsletter, and I encourage you guys to go out and search for this. You can get it in their archive. But then at the very end there was an interview with Bobby from Elion and myself. And, this was the first half of the interview, but, we talked about several things. So again, you could go read this, but that's not what's cool. That's what I used as the source. So let me share here for those watching this on video, NotebookLM, and I'll try and verbally describe what I'm seeing too, for those of you that are just listening to this on a podcast audio. So this is NotebookLM. And this example, I've already loaded that same website of the Elion Briefing over here on the left. So that's this little checkbox. So that's one source. If I wanted to add more, I could click source, and this is where you can upload files and documents from either Google Drive or your computer. You can also just paste text into it or provide links of a website or a YouTube video. So for this example, I just used the website link since there was a source of this newsletter information. Now, what's interesting about this is once you load it, it will generate this notebook guide. And you can see there's all sorts of things like a study guide, a table of contents, an FAQ, a briefing doc. And then it's already auto-generated a little summary. So that's obviously cool. It even has some suggested questions that, if this was like a study guide that you were trying to learn as a student, you could ask it questions and learn from it. So great, use case for learning. But this is like where the magic is it does this audio overview. And this is 12 minutes long, but I'm going to actually play this for the episode. So you can actually just hear how magical this is. And I do want to call out, you'll notice these AI podcast hosts actually introduced me correctly. And they actually pronounced my last name correct, which I found super cool. But then they proceeded to butcher my name. So more to come, little tease of what's to come. So let's go ahead and play this. And I'll listen along and try not make any noise.
Okay, so everyone's talking about how large language models, LLMs, are going to revolutionize healthcare.
Yeah.
But are they though? What's the real deal for me, the patient?
Yeah, you really want to cut through the hype.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing in this deep dive.
Absolutely. We've got a ton of research and expert opinions to sort through, try to make sense of it all.
We've been digging deep into this Elion Briefing.
Yeah, it's going.
And they had this analogy about baking a cake that I thought was really helpful.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
So they said, forget about the fancy frosting and decorations for a minute. That's like all the AI applications we see.
The shiny stuff?
Right. But LLMs, those are like the cake itself, the actual foundation.
It's true. I mean, without a good foundation, the applications aren't going to do much. And what makes LLMs so powerful is they can analyze these massive data sets.
We're talking like mountains of data, right?
Mountains. Medical research, clinical trials, even individual patient records. It's kind of mind-blowing.
So it's like having like a million medical students at your disposal who have read every medical textbook ever published.
And they can remember it all instantly.
Okay, that's both amazing and slightly terrifying at the same time.
Right.
But imagine what that could mean for patients.
I mean, think about it. Faster and more accurate diagnoses.
Personalized treatment plans based on like mountains of data.
No more one-size-fits-all approach.
And maybe, just maybe, AI assistants that don't sound like total robots.
Who actually understand what you're going through.
Okay, so that all sounds pretty great in theory, but are LLMs actually ready for the real world of, the doctor's office?
That's the million-dollar question.
And this is where that 5% statistic from the Elion Briefing really kind of freaked me out.
Oh, yeah, the 5%?
Only 5% of studies are using real patient data to test these LLMs.
Yeah, that's a little,
Seems a tad low.
it definitely highlights the challenges here.
Because in healthcare, there's no room for error.
Right, you're dealing with people's lives.
We're talking about real people with unique situations.
Rare conditions, drug interactions. It gets really complex really quickly.
So these LLMs, they need to be incredibly accurate.
And reliable. You can't be experimenting on patients.
And then there's the whole communication piece.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Doctors need to be able to understand how the heck the LLM came to a conclusion.
Absolutely can't be a black box.
And patients, no matter what their background is, they need to feel confident and informed about their care.
Definitely. It's about trust.
If you've got some AI telling you what to do with your health, you got to trust it.
Exactly. And it's not about replacing doctors with machines. It's about giving doctors better tools.
Like superpowers.
Exactly. So they can make even better decisions.
And patients, too, can feel more empowered in their healthcare journey.
Absolutely.
So how do we even begin to navigate this LLM landscape? It's a lot.
It is a lot. It's like a jungle out there.
It really is. And the briefing breaks it down into a few different approaches, starting with what they call frontier models.
Ah, yes. The big players, the OpenAIs and Googles of the world.
Right. Super impressive, but they weren't specifically designed with healthcare in mind.
Exactly. They're more like general purpose LLMs.
Yeah. Right. So then you have what they call fine-tuned models,
It's like taking those big general LLMs and sending them to med school.
giving them a crash course in healthcare.
Exactly. And MedLM is a good example of that.
So it's like they still have all that raw power, but now they also know about anatomy and physiology.
And how to read an EKG, things like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then you've got the specialist, the foundational model.
These are the LLMs that are laser focused on one specific thing.
Exactly. Instead of being a jack of all trades, they're masters of one.
So instead of trying to do it all, they're like the world-renowned radiologist.
But digital.
I like it.
And then finally, you've got the Avengers approach, what they call mixture of agents.
Okay, so this is where we're getting multiple LLMs working together,
Each with their own strengths, kind of like a team of specialists.
instead of one super LLM to rule them all.
Exactly. And there's some really interesting companies using this approach, like Hippocratic AI and Midgemini.
The briefing highlights some promising early results with those.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go.
For sure. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to bring in a really interesting perspective
Okay, yeah.
from the front lines of healthcare,
Let's hear it.
because the briefing actually interviewed a doctor for this one.
Oh, wow.
Dr. Adam Carewe.
I know that name.
Yeah, he's actually both a practicing physician and a tech entrepreneur.
Wait, really? He's doing both?
He is. He's the Chief Medical Information Officer, the CMIO, at his hospital.
Wow.
And he founded this company called NerdMDs, so he's got this really unique perspective.
Yeah, someone who's actually treating patients, but also super plugged into the world of healthcare tech.
Exactly. And in the interview, he talks about this big gap he sees in healthcare.
What's that?
He's a huge advocate for this idea of value-based care, which basically means focusing on keeping people healthy in the first place.
Instead of just treating them once they're already sick.
Exactly. Being proactive instead of reactive.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but how do LLMs fit into that?
Well, Carewe believes that LLMs could be a game changer when it comes to actually making value-based care a reality.
Interesting. How so?
Well, imagine having this tool that analyzes your entire medical history, your lifestyle, even your genetic predispositions.
And it uses all of that to create a personalized prevention plan just for you.
Exactly. It's like taking all that complex data and turning it into actionable steps you can actually take to stay healthy.
That would be incredible.
Right. And the other point that Carewe makes that I think is so important is that doctors need to be involved in this whole process.
Involved in what way?
In designing and implementing these AI tools, He actually says in the interview that if we don't give doctors a seat at the table, they're not going to use them.
Oh, I like that. It's true, though. You can have the most amazing technology in the world.
But if doctors don't trust it or they don't understand how to use it,
It's not going to do any good.
exactly. And I think Carewe's perspective as both a doctor and a tech expert really highlights that need for collaboration.
Absolutely. We need those two worlds to come together.
Speaking of the business side of things, the briefing also had a whole section on market moves in the LLM space.
Oh, yeah. What's happening?
Well, there's a lot going on, new partnerships, funding announcements. It's definitely a hot area.
Makes sense.
But there was this one story that really caught my eye.
What was that?
It was about this company called Pieces.
Pieces, okay.
They make clinical summaries for doctors using AI.
Interesting.
But they got into some hot water because they allegedly exaggerated the accuracy of their product.
Oh, not good.
No, not good at all.
So what happened?
Well, they ended up having to settle with the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC.
Wow. The FTC, that's serious.
It is, and I know we're not really supposed to get into ethics on this show, but I feel like this story is relevant for a different reason.
How so?
Because it raises this bigger question of transparency and accountability in AI healthcare.
It's a good point.
Like, how can we as patients, or even just within healthcare systems in general, make sure that these AI tools are actually reliable?
Yeah, you don't want to be making life or death decisions based on faulty data.
Exactly. It's like I wouldn't just take any medication without knowing how effective it is and what the potential side effects are.
Right, you want to know what you're getting into.
We should demand that same level of rigor and transparency when it comes to AI in healthcare.
I totally agree.
It's about moving beyond the hype and really understanding what these technologies can and cannot do.
And being realistic about the limitations.
Exactly. And I think that's an important message for everyone, not just healthcare professionals.
Absolutely. This is about all of us.
And on that note, maybe we should take a quick break and come back to this.
Sounds good to me.
So we're back, and I want to pick up on something we were just talking about.
Yeah, the transparency and accountability piece.
Exactly, because it's all well and good to talk about the potential of LLMs.
But at the end of the day, this technology is going to be used to make decisions about people's health.
With real-world consequences.
Absolutely, and I think that's something that's easy to forget when you get caught up in all the hype.
It's like, okay, this LLM can diagnose this disease with 99% accuracy.
But what about that other 1%?
And what happens when things go wrong?
Right, because they will inevitably go wrong at some point.
And when that happens, we need to be able to understand why.
And who's accountable?
Exactly, and I don't think we have all the answers to those questions yet.
No, definitely not. But I think that's why this conversation is so important.
We need to be asking these tough questions now.
Before these technologies become even more widespread.
Absolutely. And it's not just about protecting patients. It's also about making sure that these LLMs are actually used responsibly.
And ethically.
Exactly. Because we don't want to end up in a situation where we're creating a two-tiered healthcare system.
Where the people who have access to the best AI get the best care.
And everyone else is left behind.
Exactly. And I think that's a very real concern.
Especially given the existing inequities in our healthcare system.
Absolutely. If we're not careful, these technologies could end up exacerbating those inequities.
Instead of helping to address them.
So we need to be very thoughtful about how we develop and implement these LLMs.
And make sure that everyone benefits.
Not just a select few.
It's about making sure that this technology is a force for good in the world.
And not another tool for division and inequality.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have. It's been a really thought-provoking conversation.
For sure. And I want to thank you for joining me today and sharing your expertise.
It's been my pleasure. Always happy to talk about this stuff.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in.
And for engaging with these important issues.
We'll be sure to link to all the resources we mentioned in the show notes.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode.
So feel free to reach out to us on social media or through our website.
Until next time, stay curious and keep asking those tough questions.
And we'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of healthcare innovation. So we talked about the tech, we talked about the business.
The hopes, the concerns.
And like you said, it always comes back to the patient.
At the end of the day, that's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. So like, what does this whole LLM revolution actually mean for someone who's trying to navigate the healthcare system?
Well, and this kind of brings together everything we've discussed.
Yeah.
LLMs, they have the potential to touch every part of your healthcare journey.
From how your doctor makes a diagnosis,
To what treatments they decide to use.
to how you manage your health, hopefully before anything even goes wrong.
Precisely. Think of it like
Like those personalized recommendations you get on shopping websites.
kind of, but instead of recommending a new pair of shoes,
It's recommending what you need to stay healthy.
exactly based on your unique situation.
And that's pretty powerful.
It is, but it also puts a lot of responsibility on us as patients.
How so?
Well, we can't just passively let the algorithms make all the decisions.
We have to be informed.
We need to ask questions.
Advocate for ourselves.
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect note to end on.
It is. Knowledge is power, right?
It really is. And the more you know about these technologies,
The better equipped you'll be to navigate the future of healthcare.
absolutely. So keep learning, keep asking those tough questions.
And if you want to dive even deeper into this whole world of LLMs and healthcare,
Which I highly recommend.
definitely check out that Elion Briefing. We'll link to it in the show notes.
And be sure to check out Dr. Carewe's work with NerdMDs.
Yeah, he's doing some really fascinating stuff at the intersection of healthcare and technology.
For sure. Always pushing the boundaries.
And as always, we love hearing from you, our amazing listeners.
So if you have any thoughts on what we discussed today,
Or if you have ideas for future deep dives,
don't hesitate to reach out.
you can find us on social media. You can visit our website.
We love getting your feedback,
And until next time, stay curious, stay informed.
and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
So pretty sweet, right? I mean, if you're not impressed by that, I don't know what else to say, because I was like super impressed. Maybe because it was like a fictitious podcast that was like talking about me based on my interview, but weaving components of LLMs and other ethics and other things, which I just found interesting. So, one thing I want to highlight in there too, they actually, the podcast, AI podcast, like called out, what was in the news recently about pieces. And so coming up soon, I will have another episode where I'm going to be interviewing Ruben, the CEO and founder of Pieces. And he's going to talk about that situation and what they've actually done, and kind of put out there what's the actual truth and kind of what's happened. So stay tuned for that. So keep listening and subscribing. But, I encourage everyone to take a look at NotebookLM. You can get to it by just going to notebooklm.google.com. So super easy. I'll put links in the show notes, like our AI podcast host said, for both the sources that I used as well, if you want to take a look at that as well. But as always, appreciate comments and replies on our social media accounts on LinkedIn, and keep listening and spread the word about the NerdMDs Efficiency Unlocked. Take care all. Bye.